Hello and welcome to Clowning Around again with me and Stroud, and as ever, lovely people, I hope you have had some time to laugh, to think with kindness, and of course to play. And you know, I did promise you that for this year we were going to have awesome guests. Can't guarantee next year, but this year I definitely know we're going to have awesome guests that you're going to be like, oh, I'd never thought about things like that, or oh, I didn't know this. And well, let me tell you, lovely viewers and lovely listeners of Clowning Around again, you are in for a treat because this week we are clowning around again. We're clowning around again. Communication with the brilliant Nicole Bearne. Hello, lovely soul.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. You know, I am gently, I'm in my studio in Clapham Junction. As people who are watching this on YouTube or on clips or whatever, they will see it's quite warm. It's quite muggy in here. But apart from being a little bit warm, I am very well. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you very much. Yep, all good. Not too warm here.
Okay,
So
well,
that's
that leads me perfectly because my listeners and my viewers are a curious bunch, and they always like to know where in the world are my guests. So where are you today?
I am at home in a tiny little hamlet, I suppose you'd call it, in the North Oxfordshire countryside. In my home office, looking out across the fields, and I'm about 10 miles from Silverstone Race Circuit.
I
So that
mean,
kind of like plants me right in the middle of the
everybody
country.
knows. And let me tell you, lovely viewers and lovely listeners who haven't come across, yes, there's a reason why Silverstone's quite important about her path and everything else like that. Right. Now, everybody knows that I always like to start the podcast with a series of questions that I ask all my guests. Are you ready?
I'm always ready.
I mean, I figured you would be. Now, I know you are very accomplished of standing up on stages, being in TV studios, radio, all of that stuff. So just picture the scene. Your audience has come in. They've got their drink of choice in their hand with a nice little bit of ice. It's just rustling, yes. They're sitting, they've settled down. You're sitting on a sofa. There's a big screen behind you that says, "This is awesome." And then your small little host appears under "This is awesome." The smoke starts going off behind you. Don't know why, but it is. It's lots of lovely colours, which is lovely. We cough through that, and the producer goes, "Come on, Em, crack on. Ask the first question." So, question number one: what does communication mean to you?
Gosh, we have start with the big questions.
Start with the big questions. Let's go straight in. Let's go straight in.
I mean, communication really, I think, is the very essence of what it means to be a social being. As human beings, we are social animals. We live in social groups or social structures, and we build relationships, and we share with each other, and we support each other, and we care for each other and nurture each other, and we do all of that through communication. So it's about how we live together, how we work together, how we express ourselves, how we care, how we are ourselves as humans. And that for me is the very essence of our humanness, is our communication.
And I think it's never been more important to really value our humanness. In this world of tech and the world of AI, actually this connection piece and how we choose to do it. And of course, we all do it. But I think, where our kind of worlds slightly cross over is that we help people think about the how they're doing the what, and how is it? And I think unless you actually just take a beat to really think about these things, it sort of can happen on autopilot, and then we wonder why things go wrong and all of this. And so, yeah. And I love the fact that you've just pulled it back to, it is about being human, which, and
absolutely.
And of course, people in business, we're all humans so far. I mean, I don't believe many of us are actually working directly with robots, but that's probably going to come. But the story for another time.
Yeah, well, agentic AI, so many of the kind of smaller jobs in organizations now starting to get done by AI, as opposed to human beings. But yeah, absolutely, humanity exists through communication, and that's how we've evolved, how we've survived as a species.
And when you think about it, it's going to become even more important that we do that, because as you say, some of these jobs are taken over by AI. It's actually really important, and as I think of younger generations coming through, and I recently did a workshop as a bit of a favor for a friend, and I worked with their graduates. And the main reason I was working with their graduates because they were like, they don't know how to speak on the telephone. they're so used to doing WhatsApp and just messaging and things. And actually, where their business is at, they need people to actually build relationships and communicate. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent because you're brilliant and you're an expert. Juices in my ear. The audience are giving you a clap and they're going, "Oh, what's the next question, Em? I'm excited." What song is communication?
I'm not sure I would say it's a song.
Okay.
I think for me, communication when it's working well is like one of those really big orchestral choral classic pieces of music, you know, where the choir and the orchestra are all playing their parts together and they work together to create something really beautiful and harmonious.
Oh, I love it.
So for me, I guess I would be thinking about like one of those big choral pieces by like Carl Jenkins or somebody, or the music from the Olympics that John Williams wrote, with you've got the choir in the background singing this kind of like really rousing piece of music.
I love this. I love this so much, Nicole.
When it's like
gone highbrow.
That is hard. That is the essence of communication.
I love
when
that.
We're all on the same wavelength.
I love that. And also because so all of my songs, when I ask this question, they all go on a playlist on Spotify, which is obviously available for everyone to download. It's pretty eclectic. And let me just say,
even more.
Now it's even more eclectic because I've now got this. There is a few classical pieces on there, but there isn't a sort of big operatic one. So I am going to take...
So I would say Adiemos,
yes,
which is Carl Jenkins.
Yes.
That piece of music for me is it's beautiful communication. But the lovely thing about Adiemos in particular is that the song that the choir is singing, the language in that song is completely invented. So the words actually don't have any real meaning, and the vocals in the song have just been written to make music for the voices.
Oh, amazing.
So that the voices become part of the orchestra. So it sounds like we're communicating through words, but it's actually not really words.
Because, you know, in
which
theatre...
is an interesting little layer.
No, I love it, because in theatre there was a guy called Jerzy Kotowski who was a Polish theatre maker. And he actually, we built on other people, but and it's a theatrical language called Grammarlot. And Grammarlot in essence is sounds to words. And as long as your intention is really clear, you can do an entire play in that. And the audience will know exactly what is going on. And it's like, and it's just that, you know, and it's, and when you play with it, you suddenly realize that we can communicate, which is the same as before Google Translate. You can communicate
without words.
I mean, we could just do the rest of this podcast just silently and just assume but that's a whole other thing, which, you know, we'll let other people go.
Absolutely.
If communication was a country, what country would it be?
So I don't think it could be one country, because again, communication requires more than one individual, theoretically, although many of us do talk to ourselves, me included.
I think everybody does. I think everybody does. I love how kind you were being. You're like, many of us, and, you know, me included. I don't believe that there is one human being who doesn't at some point talk to themselves, because it would, unless I'd be really interested, like, if there was anybody that doesn't, because I think everybody must. Anyhow, yes.
We'll do. Yeah. So no, I'm not sure it could be one country. I guess it would probably have to be some kind of like United Nations.
Oh, nice.
You know, somewhere where people get together to kind of share their ideas and challenge each other's thinking and kind of just try and make sense of the world.
I love that.
That's probably where communication would sit. I think.
Love that. Who makes you think of communication? Who makes you think of it?
Gosh, I mean, lots of people, everyone, I suppose, because we all communicate. And we all interact through communication. I think there are some people who make me think of communication because they do it very badly.
Yes.
And sometimes you kind of go, why are they so bad at this? Why can they not communicate better? And then there are other people who are so eloquent, and, you know, you listen to kind of like something that Shakespeare's written, or, you know, it's so beautifully put together that you really, it kind of, you go, wow, that's brilliant. That's amazing. So, I mean, I used to work with a technical director at the Formula One team I used to be with. And for, quite often there's this sort of stereotype that engineers are not great communicators. But honestly, this guy was like the most incredible speaker. And
Mm,
he would stand up in front of a room of people and would just put things in a way that you could understand so easily, and bring it to life for you. So there are people in the world like him
mm.
who really just get it and do it so beautifully.
Yeah.
And then
And
there
then you
are
get
others that you just,
yeah,
polar opposite,
yeah,
and you just think this is a car crash.
yeah. Stop it now. Stop it.
Stop,
Oh, I love it.
stop. But but it's all communication. It's,
It it
just
is. It
different
is.
approaches to communicating,
Yeah.
and we all interact that way. Whether it's, whether we're doing it verbally or visually or musically or artistically or kind of however we want to communicate.
Mm. Yeah, it's so true. And that's a really important part, I think, when you are thinking about communication, of how many different modes there are and how many different
Mm,
ways people can access it. And
yeah,
this isn't just about communication in terms of being a good speaker or an orator, because you can communicate unbelievably through the written word, for example.
yeah,
Oh, the audience are
absolutely.
loving it. They're giving a big clap and they're having a drink. They're like, oh gosh, she's very good. She's very good. She should talk about
I
these
hope they're
things.
on their second cocktail
Oh, they're
now.
definitely on their second cocktail. It's a very nice, light evening, chat. They're loving it. Um, if communication was an object, what object would it be?
It would have to be, I think it would have to be something really fundamental that we couldn't live very well without.
Hmm,
So, like, kind of, I don't know, like, I'd like to kind of say, almost say arms or
I
or
love that.
lungs or
Yes.
something, that we would really, really struggle if we didn't have them. Or air, if you
Hmm.
could call air an object.
Yes, we can do whatever we want. This is called clowning
That's
around, and
right.
you're talking to a clown. It's completely allowed. We're looking at the air. Yes, the air is an object, because it is. Otherwise, how would I? Otherwise, what am I
How
moving
would
through?
we be able to exactly? I
Mm.
mean,
We've
how
gone
would we be able to blow people over if it wasn't an object?
exactly. I mean, we've gone
Um,
very profound.
we have,
Communication is
so
an air. Communication is human. It's like the depth that we're hitting here. It's awesome.
but it is definitely, it's something that actually, if we have no way of communicating,
Mm.
how do we survive?
Yeah,
It's just
like
that fundamental to
right.
our existence.
Like genuinely, my idea of hell would be to have that horrible locked in syndrome where you can't move and you
Yeah,
can't speak, but your brain is still
yeah,
active. That
yeah.
actually would be my idea of hell.
Just I cannot imagine a
Yeah.
world where you cannot communicate in some way, even, I mean, I guess, as we talked about just now,
Mm,
you communicate with yourself if necessary. I mean, I always makes me think of that Tom Hanks film where he's cast away on a desert
mm,
island and he ends up talking to the baseball
yeah.
because he's got no one else to talk to.
Yeah.
Um, but it is so fundamental. It is like, something like your arms or your
Yeah.
legs or your lungs, or just something that you would really struggle if you didn't have it.
Yeah. I love
um
it. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
yeah
What or who makes you laugh?
um I think in real life my sister probably makes me laugh more than anyone else.
Nice.
She is, sh the people that make me laugh are the people who have a slightly quirky sense of humor
Okay.
and see things in a slightly different way to the rest of
Nice.
the rest of us. So my sister definitely has that. And she's very observationally witty.
Mm,
And I always say she could have been a stand-up comedian because she's just brilliant at it and she's so sharp.
I love that.
So she makes me laugh a lot. Um, but I think I mean, if you're looking at kind of comedy comedians, it's the people that have that sort of slightly off the wall humor, like Billy Connolly.
Mhm.
I've seen him like 4 times, and he just has me in stitches every time I see him. Um, and it's just the way he mimes and acts a lot of what he's talking about as well, and the jokes that he's doing, and the kind of the little things he's talking about. And the other one that has me constantly is Susie Eddie Izzard. I saw her Dress to Kill tour in about 1999, and I fell off my chair laughing so much. It was brilliant.
I'm very lucky
Um,
because the person that's actually directing my show actually is Eddie Sousa's director. So it's that
oh,
thing. Yeah. So
amazing.
it's this,
Oh, fantastic.
real privilege of sort of, finding out. And, there's just that thing where you go, yeah. And their ability, and something that I so admire about Susie, is their ability to do comedy in an entirely different language.
Completely.
As somebody who
Yeah.
does comedy professionally,
Yeah.
even if my French was better than GCSE standard French, which it's really not, and it's well under GCSE standard now, the idea, the nuance behind comedy to do it in
Uh-huh.
another language,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, love it.
But it is that observational thing. I mean, I
Yeah.
still to this day, I have cat. I have a cat always, and the thing about cats drilling instead of purring, and the cat being behind the sofa drilling with his
Yeah.
hard hat on, is just one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Just the way he acts that out, back in 1999, it was
Yeah.
stayed with me ever since.
It's funny, isn't
But
it,
then
how
there's
certain
lots
things
of
do.
other things. So
Yeah.
it's quirky stuff. I like
Quirky stuff.
Terry Pratchett's books. They make me
Nice.
laugh out loud.
Nice.
The language that he used and the imagery and the idea of, this sort of imaginary world that he creates
Mm.
is funny.
And
It's funny.
how do you look after you?
Um, I generally take myself off quietly somewhere.
Nice.
I'm I'm probably what you would call an extroverted introvert.
Mhm.
So I'm very happy in groups and I enjoy being part of a team and all that kind of stuff. But actually, I recharge by just going away somewhere. So I live in the countryside, which
Right.
is my happy place. So I go for a walk and, take myself off for a long walk, or I'll potter around in my garden,
Mm.
um, or I do yoga, or I watch a movie, or curl up with my cat and chocolate. I like stargazing at night. So
Nice.
happy doing that kind of thing as well. So it's just
Nice.
quiet time, really. It's
Mm.
just being alone. I have been been taking a bit of time off this week. I've been painting fences in my garden. That's been refueling me.
It's funny, isn't it, how those kind of tasks, I mean, there's a reason why in Karate Kid they get people to, it's that
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
that repetition, and just being
Yep,
grounded, and also that you can see what you have done. And there is
absolutely. And you can see
something,
how much more there is to do,
there is that
which
as
is
well.
the
If you
slightly
You're like, I've got a
distressing
big
thing right now.
fence. I've got a big fence, people. I've got everything else like this. How do you play? How do you play?
I don't play as often as I'd like to. I think
Okay.
that's one of the big challenges we all have as we, it always reminds me of that song from Matilda that Tim Minchin wrote about, when I grow up.
Mhm.
And I'm going to be able to climb all the trees that you get to climb when you're grown up. And it's like, why do I not climb trees anymore? But for me, spending time with my son is a
Mm.
lot of playtime in some respects. I mean, I've been very fortunate that he and I have had a brilliant relationship. He's now 23, but for the last 23 years, he and I have played, things together.
Amazing.
So we still play board games, and I get quite competitive about whether it's Catan or Carcassonne or Ticket to Ride or something. We have every so often we'll get together and we'll have a board game.
Amazing.
Um, and then he and I do theme parks as well, which we
Hmm.
which we have fun in. So
Do you
we
like a
were in.
roller coaster?
Oh God, I love a roller coaster.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely adore them.
Yeah.
Love them. So but yeah,
It's
adrenaline
that's
junkie.
that's a little bit of one of my guilty pleasures on TikTok, because yes, I'm down with the kids. I'm on TikTok,
Yay!
and oh my word, on TikTok, you can go down a rabbit hole on anything. And what I discovered a couple of days ago was a rabbit hole about all the different roller coasters that people have filmed
Oh,
themselves. And they're going,
amazing.
and it's like, there are so many cool ones that I've not been on. I'm like, I
There
must go
are
to.
amazing ones.
There are some really good ones. And then finally on the quick fire round, because they've finished their cocktails, they're very happy. They've run out of smoke. So they're like, come on in, we've run out of smoke. We can't do any more smoke. What have you been thinking about in the last couple of days, apart from your fence? But maybe it's just been your fence.
The fence has definitely been up there, and how big the fence is and how complicated the fence is. Loads of things. I think my brain bounces around like crazy most of the time. So,
Mm.
whilst I have been trying to take a bit of time off, I'm not managing to do it very well. So probably been trying to figure out how to use my time better.
Okay.
Think about my mum who turned 80 this month.
Right.
So future for her and
Mm-hmm.
work. Thinking about piece of project work that I've got on sort of communication land, I suppose, communication related stuff. All the things that need fixing around my house.
So
The fact that I
many,
need to pick up my cat's medication.
many
I had a
things.
tooth infection last week and I'm going to the
Oh,
dentist tomorrow. So I've been thinking about my teeth. So all that stuff just kind of
it's just as well
goes
you've
around
got
in
a
my
big
head.
fence. Got a lot of time to think about all. You've got a lot of
And that's
things.
probably why I find mindfulness and meditation quite hard, as I know you do as well. It's just there's too much stuff going
Mm.
around most of the
And
time.
it's funny actually because I've just kind of got back into my practice, and I know you've seen my show, so anybody comes to use my
Mm,
show, you'll see my take after doing my 10 days of being away, and it's a really interesting thing when you know, like I drop in and out of practice of it, but at the
yeah,
moment, because
I
I'm
do.
now fully back in it, it's that thing of that spaciousness. And in a way,
Uh-huh.
meditation is a kind of communication with self, because what it does is it gives you a different perspective, and then you can, well, I know I communicate better with the world when I allow myself that bit of time, even if it's just 5 minutes of
Yep.
just slowing down, you know.
Yeah.
But our audience has gone, they've disappeared. They've given you a massive round of applause. The smoke and the sofa and the stage have all disappeared, and we're now back in Oxford or Oxfordshire and London. Do you think, was communication something that you were always curious as a kid?
I guess at school, language was
Right,
my thing.
right.
So not so much necessarily communication, but I had the kind of brain that worked with words and not numbers.
Okay.
Still have. So very much I read lots of books when I was a kid, loved, kind of going to the theatre and that kind of thing. And ended up just studying languages at university, at school, and then on at university as well. And my kind of an initial ambition really was to travel and to get out and see the world.
Hmm.
And so my kind of career ambition was very much around how can I get myself to other countries. And so I went to university and studied Russian and international relations.
As
And
everybody does.
international relations is an interesting kind of has interesting associations with communication, because it's very much about how countries communicate
Mm,
with each other. And my first job straight out of university was at the British Embassy in Moscow,
right.
and I wanted to be a diplomat.
Hmm.
So I think probably where I first started properly thinking about communication was there.
Mm.
Was when you're in a situation, the Cold War had just ended. There was a lot of change in the Soviet Union, and we were starting to see the Soviet Union opening up to the West, and there was much more interaction between the countries.
Mm.
And I was part of the cultural section of the British Embassy. So we were working with visiting artists and tour groups, and we had, English language courses running through the work that we were doing, and it was very much about how do we build that communication between our two countries,
Mm.
and sits at the essence of what diplomacy is helping countries communicate with each other. So for me, I think that's probably where I first started thinking about how do we communicate with each other, how do we make help each other to understand
Mm.
what it is that we want
And it's so important as
to
well,
achieve.
isn't it? And I remember, if I go back to, I think it was like the third episode of the pod where it was just called Clowning Around, and I interviewed Stu Packer, who's a really dear friend of mine, and we were talking about storytelling, and he is without doubt one of the most masterful storytellers I know. And him and a colleague of his wrote a book all about the history of story.
Mm,
And one of the things that, if I get this correct, Stu, sorry if I got this wrong, but they both went together and they were working, I believe in Israel before the current crisis, shall we say, and
Mm.
they were working with uh, Jewish people and then Muslim people, and actually about the shared humanity through
Yeah.
story and how we can
Yeah.
communicate. And arguably then, as it was and it is now,
Mm.
the world is so polarized in so many ways. And
Yep.
actually, what you've just sort of sparked in me, and that's sort of thinking about Russia and the UK, is at the moment, the way that the world is communicating is so, it's led with a lot of it is led with a lot of anger and a lot of like, I
Mm.
am right and I'm not going to listen to
Oh,
anybody
yeah.
else. And
Yeah.
actually, like you just said, with diplomacy, part of it is how do we get to understand? And it's
Yeah.
being really mindful about how do we put our words together, and it's the
Yep.
craft of communication, like your
Yep.
technical guy. Like when you get a technical guy that can then make a very technical thing understandable to a mere mortal, you know that you've got
Exactly.
a master communicator. But
Yep.
there's a mindset and there's a skill behind that. And so
Yep.
after leaving, doing diplomacy and things, what then what were you what was the trail that you were following for your own curiosity in this way?
So, I mean, it was an interesting one because very much then I ended up working in this kind of international Russian environment. And so working in a different
Right.
language, in a different culture, getting to try and understand how other people were thinking, how my Russian colleagues would be thinking and feeling about things as well. So, um, but it wasn't really something that I articulated as a role
Mm,
until I moved into motor racing. And then it started to kind of then distill into actually there's a job that I can do that involves communication
mm,
and writing and helping people to understand. Um, so up until that point, I think it was very much more kind of just a sort of a general sense that we communicate in different ways
mm,
and becoming aware of how other people might be perceiving
mm.
what I was how I was communicating.
And it's and it's
Um,
and it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously, also you were younger, so it was also sort of you were
mm,
learning and doing the do as
mm,
opposed to kind
mm,
of intellectualizing what am I doing, everything else like that. And
mm.
and I find it interesting, knowing that you've kind of come from a Formula One background as well. If I think about that as a sport, it is fascinating that over my lifetime how differently it is communicated now.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
and how they've
absolutely.
engaged with different audiences around the
Yeah,
world, and how they've shifted my perception, how they've shifted the narrative around certain things, and how they're
yeah.
there's even the awareness of the environmental cost of moving so
Mhm.
many people around the world, and and all of that kind of stuff. What surprised you the most at the time that you were in F1 and doing all of your work? What was the thing that surprised you the most?
I think I think when I first got into the sport, I thought it was all about traveling around the world, going racing, and that Formula One teams were what you saw on television.
Mm,
There would be a garage with some generally men in it, all kind of working on a race car that was driven by a man. And I think the more I worked in the sport, the more I realized that actually it's not that. It's not about the technology. It's not about the speed. It's not about the team that you see at the racetrack, although they're a huge part of it. It's about everything that goes on behind the scenes and
right.
everybody that sits behind that and supports that work. And as time has gone on over the sort of 25 years that I was in that sport, it has changed immeasurably, and
Mm,
it's not just the way it's communicated to the outside world, although absolutely that has become very different especially in the last sort of 5-10 years. But the teams themselves have changed.
mm,
They've gone from being maybe 200 generally men in a small warehouse somewhere, to being teams of 1,300, 1,400, up to 2,000 people with way more diversity, far more females, far more people from different cultures, different backgrounds getting into the sport. And that for me has been fascinating to watch, and also been fascinating to be part of growing that as
mm,
well, I think, over the years, and helping people to see that that it's not necessarily just what you see on television, that
What? There's
there's more
stuff
to it.
behind? It was like some,
Goes on behind the
isn't
scenes,
it
yeah.
amazing, isn't it? It's this sort of, this sort of veneer, and I've been lucky enough to, obviously done some telly and some radio and all this kind of stuff. And
Mm,
it's so extraordinary. Like, unless you played in that world, you can
yeah,
so just get, because, you're seeing the end product, and a little
absolutely.
while ago I had
Yeah.
fabulous Melina on the pod, and I think it was in December, she had her first full feature film on Channel 4, and it's called Saving Mum. And if you haven't watched it and you haven't listened to that episode, do go
No.
back. And it was a unbelievable documentary about her mum and her mum's relationship with her mum being an alcoholic, and then also coming from a South Asian background.
Yeah.
Genuinely extraordinary. And the thing is that if you saw that 1 hour episode, which is still on 4 on demand, that's what you see. But
Mm.
when you actually understand the time, the teams, from the moment from getting commissioned to then getting the
Oh,
right
yeah.
people, and all of this stuff. And I think this is one of those things that I find fascinating about generally sort of communication, is like, we're all very good at sort of seeing the final product or the final thing.
Mm,
But
mm.
actually, and this is some of the stuff that I quite often talk about, it's the stuff behind the scenes,
Yeah.
and I know you've seen my show, but I'm about to take it to Edinburgh, and that's 2.5 years of work. And it's
Mm,
that communication, and things don't just happen overnight. It's the same as you standing up and doing one of your
mm.
talks. People go, "Oh, she's brilliant, so slick,
Yes.
she knows what she's doing." And you're like, "Yeah, it took me a long time to get this," and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's that energy and thought into the how we're doing the what we have. So of course you've got a track year of
Absolutely.
however long of working in Formula One and back in Russia and all of that. So that everybody knows that we know what it is that you're talking about, but it's the how that's then delivered. And
Mm.
I'm curious now, as you have not walked away, but you decided to go off and set up your own thing and everything else like that. And you help lots of businesses and awesome organizations think about their communication and everything else like that.
Mm.
What's the thing at the moment that's landing the most with people when you're talking about communication? What's the solution to a challenge that they're facing that you're seeing people go, "Oh yeah, okay, I get it"? What's the thing you're seeing?
I think, to be honest, it's almost a step back from that. It's
Okay.
actually what I see quite a lot is that organizations come to me and they say, "Oh, we've got problems with, X, Y, and Z. We've got problems with processes not working, and we've got problems with products not being delivered on time, and we've got problems." And they come up with all these different problems.
Mm,
And if you drill down into the root cause of all of their problems, so often it comes down to communication.
mm,
And that for them is quite often the eureka moment. It's not so much, "Oh, we're struggling with our communication." They don't necessarily recognize that. They think that they're struggling with processes, or they're struggling with training people or retaining people, and actually when you drill it down, you go, "Actually, but hang on a minute. How are you communicating this?
mm.
Let's take it back to its sort of very basic level."
And I think,
And it is that challenge around communication that people don't necessarily recognize they have.
no, and you're so
'Cause,
right.
we all do it. We talk.
Yes,
We talk to each other every day in the
yes,
office. We
yes.
spend the whole day talking to each other.
We've had team
We're in
meetings. We
meetings
spoke.
all the time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're like, have you challenged how you're speaking at the team meetings? How they
Yes.
run? How they operate? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
really interesting that you say that, because across, and like you, I float across all sectors and stuff, and there is lots of shifts going on in the world, good and bad,
Mm,
right? And so there's lots of shifts, and there always will be changes going on in business because we're people, and so people change stuff, right? And
absolutely.
that skill set, that ability to be able to hold your audiences, to share why you are going to go through yet another program of change, or here's a restructuring. And
Yeah.
what I see time and time again is that there's been lots of effort on the let's write it all down, this is what we're going to do, but
Mhm.
less effort put to how do I make it so that people actually care, give a shit,
Yeah.
and actually
Yeah.
understand the reasoning why. And that to
Yeah.
me is at the heart of really good communication, right?
Absolutely. I mean, within any organization, the vision of leadership has to be to take people on a journey. And it's all very well if the C-suite have their strategic plan, but unless they have the enthusiasm and the buy-in and the commitment from every single member of the team, it's very difficult for them to take people, along with them. And how do you actually build that commitment? Well, you build it by communicating clearly, by listening to people, by giving them the opportunity to co-create with you. And rather than speak at people, it's speaking with people, and helping them to understand where it is that you are aiming for, and then listening to what they feel about that.
I love it. And it almost sort of brings us beautifully. It's like we know what we're doing. It brings us beautifully back to the first question when I said, what does communication mean to you? And it was very clearly, it's about being human. And I think what you just said at the heart, it's very easy to get really grandiose and have different techniques and tools and methods, but fundamentally, really good communication comes from listening and having really good clarity. And if you do both of those things, especially the listening part, so you listen and you respond as opposed to just waiting for your own time to talk. It's amazing what can happen, Gosh, it's almost like we know what we're talking about. Whisper it quietly, world. I could talk to you for hours, but I'm aware of your time and, of course, my good listeners' time. How do people find more about you? Where should they go on the big thing called the internet?
Oh, they can find me on LinkedIn. And they can find me on my website as well, which is www.comms-exchange.com.
I will make sure.
But yes, link in with me. I'm always happy to chat because communication is about meeting and connecting with people.
In it. I will make sure that both of those links are on the show notes. I knew it was going to be a joy chatting to you about communication, and it has been. So thank you so much for coming on Climbing Around again with me, Stroud. I have loved it. Have a splendid rest of your day.
Thank you so much. It's been such fun.
I hope you loved that. She is like this powerhouse of a woman, and when it comes down to communication within organizations, like she gets a trumpet. And the thing that I love most about that was actually she didn't go into what I thought she was going to go into. She went straight into communication as human. And I think we can all take it for granted sometimes. That ability that we have to engage, to inspire, to do different things with different people. And I hope that this has landed with you. And for me, the thing that's really landed is actually, let's just take a moment to really communicate with one another. Take your headphones out when you're being served coffee. Put your phone down when you're going to be served at a supermarket. Let's actually just take the time to come back and communicate with one another, because I think if we all did that, if everybody listening and watching this did that, that makes a difference, kids. And that could really make a difference to a lot of people. So thanks again for listening to Climbing Around with me, Stroud. Do make sure that you have some time to laugh, think, and play, because it does make you feel better. I will catch up with you next week. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.